Welcome back to the Gun Collective Podcast. My name is Jon Patton. We are here once again with a great guest. I am joined today by Bryan Flannagan, CEO, according to his email. I feel like it's more than that, of AIM Surplus. And before we get into the show, I got to kick it off. We got to keep the lights on. We have to do this. blackoutcoffee.com/TGC and use our code TGC to get yourself a discount. Go buy yourself some Tenacity blend. That is our signature blend. You're going to love it if you love coffee. And if you don't, try their teas. I especially love the English breakfast. And then you could also try their hot cocoa. I'm telling you guys, Blackout Coffee is where it's at. Blackout Coffee TGC. Use our code TGC. And of course, also that same code will work at vertex.com. You get yourself at least 15% off when there's holidays, and I don't know, whenever they feel like it, they bump that up to sometimes 20%, 25%, maybe 30%. They use it all the time. And the code is TGC. They've got bags, apparel, vehicle stuff, gun stuff, you name it, vertex.com. Bryan, how are you, buddy?
Good morning. It's good to see you.
It is a morning when we are recording this, and you are coming all the way from the grand state of Ohio. How is it out there? What's the weather like right now in like late spring, sort of early summer-ish? What's the weather like?
We're mid 70s, which is actually super nice.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm happy about that. And I think we're going to have a nice weekend. I just did a gun class last weekend and it was 80s. And so like, it's the good time of year now. I'm happy.
That's fantastic. That sounds wonderful. You took a gun class. What was it?
Sage Dynamics, Red Dot, Personal Defense.
Was Aaron actually teaching, or does he have
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, he was there. It's the first time I actually met him in person. Awesome dude.
Yeah, that's another guy I gotta try and get on here because he's a very unique personality. He's incredibly intelligent and doesn't stop trolling whenever he's attached to the internet. It's kind of fantastic.
Yeah. I was telling somebody else, I'm like, super smart guy. We talked about NASA. We talked about science. We talked about all kinds of stuff that was outside the gun world. And I was just super impressed by him and also really personable. Every person at the class got one-on-one time with him on the line and outside the line.
Wow.
Super happy with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty rad. I'm sure that is something that people can check out. I know he's got a schedule, but what I want to, I kind of want this to, I want to absorb you and your business and your background. So how the hell did AIM Surplus get started? So first off, I guess we should explain what exactly AIM Surplus is for people that don't know, because I think it's more than just the name, right? So what's the elevator pitch?
So we are a online gun company, but also now have a huge showroom in Monroe, Ohio. We sell guns, ammunition, all the AR parts, all the Glock parts, a lot of police trade-ins. That's been like a bread and butter the past couple years. But our big start was surplus, all the World War II surplus. We've really had some really unique stuff over the years. And so, it expands because, listen, I'd love to get some K98s and Lugers in, but we're not in that world anymore. So
no, we are not.
Now the new, So the new surplus on my end is police trade-ins, because police trade-ins are, that's what we're getting nowadays. And we get cool stuff, 30-30 rifles. We get, like police trade-in shotguns, riot gear, helmets, body armor, all that cool stuff.
Yeah, I actually have some of that. Bryan has repeatedly hooked me up with not just like new gun products. We've worked together a little bit there, but also I ordered some stuff one time, and then there's just like a riot helmet in the package. I'm like, all right, this guy's this is gonna be great. That was one of the first times we ever did anything too, and I still have it. It's like sitting right there. So so you kind of encompass everything from new to the trade-in world. How the hell did that start? Like, where does that even come from? Where do you get connected into that trade-in side of things?
So if you want the whole story, it's a long story.
We've got time. I'm very curious because
let's do it.
Let me set the stage here. So when a consumer sees a gun retailer website, right? They see just the face of a company, and they probably think they're all huge conglomerates. And having been to your warehouse and all of that, you run a lean, tight ship. And I find it kind of fascinating how all of that stuff fits under that roof. So tell me the story, brother.
So my dad started a gun shop called Mike and Phil's in 1979. That's how far back we're going to go.
All right.
Mike and Phil's. My uncle Phil got a divorce, and they decided to stop the company, start a new company, which became Southern Ohio Guns.
Okay.
Southern Ohio Guns was the big monster of surplus in the 80s and 90s. It closed down a few years ago, but I grew up working there. Both my parents owned businesses, so there was no babysitter. So I went to work every day with my dad until, I could go to school.
Okay.
I was the same gun show brat. I grew up at all the gun shows. I remember going into school on a Monday and my teacher saying, well, what'd you do over the weekend? And, we marched on the Capitol because John Metzenbaum, whatever his first name was, is trying to put some gun control through. And she's like, okay, you're a little kid. What are you doing? But so I grew up in that. And
I'm a civil rights activist, lady.
Yes. So, but my dad and mom both owning their own businesses. There was no, sleeping in on Saturday. There was no, it's a snow day. We went to work. So at the age of 13, she had a really big hair salon, like a 15-chair hair salon.
Okay.
And so, I couldn't hang out there because, old women don't want a bratty kid. So I went to work with Dad. And at about 13, I started full-time. I'll send you a cool picture of me sorting SKSs. So my first job there was to take Carcanos that came in a 55-gallon drum, like 20 Carcanos, and then dumped Cosmoline. I would pull one out and it would suction out and it would be a big glob. And I'd have to put it in a tank of kerosene with a wire brush and wire brush it down to make it look like at least the form of a gun, because it literally came out as a big tube of Cosmoline.
So wait a second. I don't think I understood this. You've given me the best description possible. They literally put guns in a drum and then fill the drum with Cosmoline?
With Cosmoline. Yeah. And then they shipped us barrels. So pop open a 55-gallon drum, start pulling out guns, clean them up to at least resemble a gun. I mean, they're still caked. Box it up, put it on the shelf. And I did that for a whole summer, K98s, Carcanos. And then that was really when China, we're talking 89-ish, 88.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I am older than I look. So I processed, and I remember getting shipments of like, here's a semi-truckload of 760 by 39 Chinese ammo, no pallets. There's, 1.5 million rounds. Somebody would forklift a pallet into the back of the container, and you'd start stacking.
Oh my gosh.
Awful job. Hated it. And then, just processing guns through, and, then I get to go to school and relax for the winter. And then next summer was back to it. And
so
I was always the fill-in guy.
It's the opposite of how other kids did it.
So I shipped orders. I pulled orders. I worked in gunsmithing for a while, processing through returns. And then one summer we got in a shipment of 100,000 Russian SVT-40s. First time they were ever in the country.
100,000 of them?
100,000 of them.
Aren't they pretty much untouchable these days?
Oh, yeah. This is probably 90, 91. And so my job was to take a gun out of the crate, put it in an engraver, import mark, next engraver, and a serial number, because they had Cyrillic characters. They had to be real serialized, re-serialized. Right. So I did that for a summer, and I did that all the way until I was 18. And the last thing I really wanted to do in high school was be back in the gun business, because to me, the gun business was this drama of, was it going to get shut down the next week? I remember when Clinton got elected being so upset, and I was 92, that, he's going to shut down the family business, And so my dad had sold his portion of that company, but still continued to work there. He was the vice president of purchasing. And so, but I continued to work there. So went to college, and my brother-in-law had been the vice president of that company, and he had left and started his own company. Not in the gun business. We were selling cell phone batteries, Motorola radios. He didn't want to be in the gun business because he had left the gun business. And we had an old friend call us and say, hey, I've got some material that I need to sell, but I can't sell it to distributors. It's different. It doesn't fit the mold of sending it to a Smith & Wesson distributor. we're like, yeah, we're not in the gun business. We're doing something else. And he's like, just listen, I'll send it to you on consignment, just because it was a good, they were friends and it was a trust factor. He was like, just put an ad in Shotgun News and pay me when you sell it. And he was like, okay. So a semi truck rolls up to his garage and it's M1 Grand parts kits, everything but the receiver.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to say this is 96.
Okay.
And we put an ad in Shotgun News, sold these parts kits for $169, bayonets, all that stuff. And then the guy was like, hey, that worked out really well. Can you help me again? I've got a bunch of Lugers and P38s in Canada. I need to get out of Canada. I'm like, okay. So we went and got a building in Waynesville, Ohio. And he was like, yeah, this is working out really well. How about some infields, number 4 infields? We're like, yeah, ship them. And then he's like, hey, I've got some German Macrovs. Can you do German macro? Okay, yeah, ship it. And so now we got ads all over Shotgun News. We're making a mailer that we're sending out to customers with FFLs. And then the guy comes back to us, and this was the big one. This is the one that kind of like, hey, we're back in the gun business.
So this is a catalyst.
He says, hey, I've got 120 million rounds of South African 308 and 223. Can you help me?
Oh my gosh.
So we went and got another building.
That number again. What was that number again?
120 million rounds. That was 240 truckloads.
Into the audience, 120 million rounds.
Yeah.
You can't even fathom that.
No. And honestly, we couldn't handle that. So we made some friends with Cheaper Than Dirt, Sportsman's Guide, Xander's Wholesale. We were wholesaling it all over, shipping containers here, containers there, but retailing it. And, this is back when that South African 223, I want to say we were selling a 2,700 round case for $250.
Oh my gosh.
And people were complaining that's just too high because this is South African. It's not Winchester. And we're like, listen, dude, it's cheap. Just moving containers around is expensive. And so that really just put us back in the gun business. And we found some new friends in the industry. A company had just started and they were young and most of us were young and we kind of became friends. And it was a company called Magpul. And they only had, these little rubber mag,
the actual Magpul.
Yeah. And they were like, hey, we got something new coming out. And they shipped us the first couple CTR stocks. And it was like a match made in heaven. So we hooked up with those guys and we started making friends with all these AR companies. And so we really just started pushing into other stuff. And, because surplus was drying up and we were doing, hey, there's 10,000 K31s. Hey, there's, all these, other Nagant revolvers and 9130s. And we kept rolling through. But
I think it's hilarious that you're like, yeah, it's drying up, that we haven't gotten a truckload of 120 million in a while.
But that market in the 90s, late 90s and the early 2000s was just crazy. Stuff was cheap.
So when it was 94 was the Clinton assault weapons ban, just for context. And Magpul started, I believe it was 99 and didn't officially launch until like 2003 was the first mag, I think. Something like I'm not positive on the history of it, but just to give the listeners, viewers some context of the timing of all this happening. Okay, go ahead.
So the change was my interest versus my brother-in-law's interest. He wanted to do surplus, but I'm into black guns. I've been a shooter all my life. I bought my first when I told you I was working at 13. I saved up that whole summer to buy my first AUG because I loved an AUG. And
so a Steyr AUG. All right.
Yeah. So always been into, guns. And so I got us kind of into the AR market, new black guns, because that's what I like. That's what I wanted to do. And so we slowly, as surplus dried up, we really started pushing into the new stuff and the business evolved. And, as things change, we're always trying to roll with the punches because the market's changing all the time. And, right now, new gun sales aren't that great, but law enforcement trade-ins, we're selling Glock 22s for $299 on the website. So it's always pulling in new consumers. And so I bought the company from my brother-in-law in 2018.
Okay.
And so, it just keeps chugging along. He taught me how to run the business. Probably one of the most influential people in my life. He is more than a brother-in-law, more like a father figure to me. And he always taught us, listen, we're going to pay our employees well, way above industry standards, take care of our people. They take care of us. As you noted, we don't have a huge staff, but all the staff, that's the cool thing is I know their families. I know their kids, and we become a family here. So I have my real family, and then I have my work family, and we're all close.
It's interesting because having spent, what was it, 2 or 3 days there for
Yeah.
AIM Day last year, like later in
Hmm.
the year, I think it was, and
Fall.
I got to witness this firsthand. And there's a lot of company. Oh, we're a family here. That this is one of those instances where it's not BS. They actually do all spend a bunch of
Mhm.
time together. They know each other's habits. They know what everybody likes, and it feels like when you're in that environment, everybody literally feels like you're walking into somebody's home. And it's
Yeah.
kind of weird because it's a gun business. There's a warehouse, there's
Mhm.
inventory tracking, and there's laser stippling and all this other crazy stuff that they've gotten into over the years. And the personal vibe is very, very relaxed and informal, but everybody's there to get it done. It's kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, that's the vibe we want. I don't want what Midway has. I don't want what Brownells has. I don't want when we first started hiring people, it was my friends, because all my friends were the right age to come in and work a job.
Sure.
And then it became, church friends, school friends, and so it's always been that way. And so when we hire somebody, we put a lot of thought into it. Like, hey, I'm going to hang out with this guy for 50 hours a week. I need him to be, or her, to fit in the culture. And so that is our culture. We're all shooters, as you know.
That's true.
Um, half of our employees probably shoot 3 times a month,
Don't you guys
and
have like
we do it
like
together.
a range day that you all like, it's like a
Yeah,
scheduled thing that you do
yeah,
together?
yeah. So Labor Day, we have a shoot together. Everybody brings their toys, and so it's like, hey, I shoot a lever gun. Do you want to shoot a lever gun? I shoot this. Do you want to shoot this? And yeah, it's everybody like playing with their toys like a bunch of kids. It's fun.
I think what's cool about that is that a lot of times when you put a group of people in a single environment together, they end up becoming the same person.
Yeah.
And you guys have avoided that somehow. Do you know why? Like how did you avoid everybody becoming the exact same type of shooter? Everybody's got this gun and this is all we shoot. How did you avoid that?
So new guys, like we just hired a guy, new guy, Caleb, in the showroom, and he is a SKS guy. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not an SKS guy because I spent too much time in my childhood import marking, and I like SKSs, but it's not my thing. I don't own one. I guess I have one Russian one at the house, but so he's an SKS guy. To me, it's interesting because it's not the typical, oh, I shoot AR-15s or I shoot Glocks. It's something different. And so, all of us shooting together all the time, we get to kind of, enjoy other people's perspectives. I've got a guy who loves his 13-inch Mosin Nagant that he suppresses. Okay, I don't own that, but I could shoot yours.
Did
So
you
it's
say
kind of fun.
13-inch Mosin Nagant?
Yeah. Yeah. And he shoots subs. It's really weird. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like the most ass backwards gun.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I want to shoot it. There's no like
Yeah.
I want to shoot that gun because I want to shoot everything, but oh my gosh. And
Hmm.
how slow, so that's a 308 plug going around 1,000 feet per second, just for context on that.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah. It's
weird.
weird. And I think he's got some weird, like 200 grain bullets too. It's really weird.
Okay. So that's basically a surplus 300 blackout at that point.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
All right. I can get down with that. So you've got this culture of, I guess the simplified way to put it is everybody respects each other's choices, as opposed to some environments where you almost get bullied into believing the same exact thing that other
Hmm.
people believe, which is kind of rare these days.
Yeah.
A lot of brands have this sort of indoctrination of we are this way all the time. We are a collective we are a collective of people that become a singular unit. And I don't necessarily enjoy that all the time. Sure, it's a thing, but I kind of prefer the individuality aspect of it. So how does that play into your like day to day of AIM surplus? Like that individuality matters. So how do you keep that going with the business going?
So as I get older, and they make fun of me because I am one of the oldest here. Some of the guys call me Papa, but
Wow.
yeah, and I hate it. But so I do get new. So for example, a couple days ago, somebody brought up, "Hey, so and so's got a new product," and it was not in my wheelhouse. It wasn't something I was like, "Yeah, I want to carry that." But they said, "Hey, I think we should put this in the line, start carrying this stuff." And that's really great about having gun guys, because a lot of the gun industry, and you know this as well as I do, there is the corporate people who are not gun guys.
Very true.
And I don't want, I shoot 40, 42 weekends a year. I'm a gun guy. And so it's nice to have other gun guys here that will bring in, like, "Oh, did you see so and so's video? Did you see this new product?" And they're bringing me stuff, and that's great, because then it allows us to be, more on the edge of the industry, where we're
Sure.
trying to get all the new stuff, and that's been really cool. The younger guys keep me young because it's still a shooting competition when we go shooting, so I got to keep up with those guys.
Yeah, and this is like I've seen the results of it. I've heard so many people in leadership roles BS and say, "Oh yeah, we're a family. We all shoot together," and they do it maybe once a quarter. And you guys do this all the time. All the time.
Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. It's show up and shoot, and it's a lot of USPSA stuff. And I've got two master class shooters that shoot USPSA. And
On
listen,
staff.
I'm not,
Or they
yeah,
just
and
come
I'm
to
not letting them
okay.
have anything. No, they're on staff. And so I want to compete on every drill. Mostly we do handgun and AR stuff, but it's very competitive, and there's a lot of trash talk. We don't let anybody go.
I like it. So how did you become so enthusiastic about I'll call it the double stack 1911/2011? I absolutely, first of all, I loathe the fact that the term 2011 is trademarked. I loathe
Mhm.
that, because everybody could just use that term, but no, they want money for it. Douchebaggery.
Yeah,
Okay, how did you get locked into that? Because you are a big time enthusiast
I
in
am.
that, right?
So here's how it came about. We were all shooting Glocks, and I needed a competitive edge because I'm double the age. I'm 47. I've got 20-year-olds shooting with me, so I needed a competitive edge. I got into M&Ps. M&Ps are, I think, more competitive than a Glock, and then they all got M&Ps. So I had to step up the 2011 game. I need faster, quicker, and so I got my first one, which was a Staccato XC, DVCP, same gun, and I really liked them. It was something unique, and they shoot fast. It kind of, it's a tinkerer's gun a little bit, because it requires more maintenance. And so I bought my first one, then I bought my second one, then I bought my third, fourth, fifth, and I think I'm up to like 14. I just love them. It's just something that's unique, and they all have their own, they all run different, so it's just fun.
What was the one you were showing off on your social media the other day?
Probably a Chambers one, or a Fowler. I had a Fowler Vanta just got this week.
That was probably that one.
Yeah.
I've heard of Chambers. What's Fowler?
Fowler, they were known for Glock stuff. So they did custom Glocks, Glock parts, and all that. And about maybe 2 years ago, they did the Vanta, which is their 2011. I mean, if Darth Vader had a 2011, this is the gun he would have. It is all milled out. It is so freaking cool looking. And I just had to have one. It was one of those ones where even if I don't shoot it, it just looks so cool that I had to have it.
So when
So
you
I got
open the
that one.
case, the Imperial March starts playing.
Oh yeah, and some steams. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's great. So why do you think it is that seemingly, from my perspective, has become all the rage? The industry is very cyclic. At the same time, we all went from ultra reliable, it's got to be the most reliable thing ever, to let's
Mhm,
all shoot a arguably finicky design
mhm.
and look super duper cool. How the hell did that happen?
It's like a Ferrari. So they're expensive.
Yes, they
They
are.
require more maintenance, more cleaning, specialized care if you need something done to it. But when they run, there's nothing out there that'll run with it. So the performance gains makes it worth it. So pre staccato, back when it was STI, Everything in 2011s was always known to be kind of unreliable unless you really know what you're doing.
Yeah, and they were all at
Staccato
that point, it was
released.
all like race guns
Yeah,
and like sort of
yeah,
bleeding edge of competition only, right?
yep. So Staccato did the P model, which was really what changed the 2011 model because they came out with a police. I think they P is for police, but it was a ultra reliable. You could run it dirty. It had 90% of the performance, but it was a reliable gun, and that literally changed the game for them because now I know a lot of police officers that bought them. Other people who just are big range guys that wanted them because you got the reliability now. Now, to me, the P is not like the most desirable gun for me because I'm pushing for edge of the performance. I really want the race gun, but I do have a P, and that's what I tell everybody to buy. If you want to get in the 2011 game, go buy a Staccato P. Do a $2,500 entry. It's cheaper than a lot of the other guns because you can get up to 10 grand pretty quick in a custom 2011.
Oh my
So
gosh, yeah.
$2,500 entry is something you can play with and see if you like it and see if it's for you.
I gotta ask you because I see this all over social media, which means you've seen it. What do you think of air racking a gun like that?
So shout out to my buddy Austin Platt. I think he made it famous. He's a guy out of Columbus, and he's a big man. I mean, if you saw him, you would think he was a defensive lineman for the Raiders. I swear he's the guy who made it famous because he was doing it before anybody ever saw.
Okay.
But to me, that's always been like one of the things like, yeah, okay, my arms are brittle. I can't do that anymore.
I've
too
heard
old.
the argument that it's like, oh, that gun is undersprung because you can air rack it and get it to lock open. For those that don't know what air racking is, the idea is that you move your hand, you have the gun in your hand. Obviously, you hopefully are doing this in a safe place, blah, blah, blah. But you move the gun so quickly that you can rack the slide just by moving your arm and not under the gun's own power with one arm. And I always argue I can do it with a high point. Why is it impressive? Like people put it on social media like it's sort of this impressive thing. I'm like, well, I can do it with, you can kind of see it in the corner over there. I can do it with a $200 gun. What's the big deal here? What's the big deal? Why is this cool?
It was funny because somebody, I want to say Legion down in Texas, just released some, and they actually put that in the spec so you can air rack it. And I was like, we went to a point that, okay.
Like, who are you selling guns to? Are you selling guns to shooters, or are you selling guns to John Wick wannabes at this point?
Instagram influencers.
Yeah. Like that's. What do you think of that trend? I mean, has that? So you've been at it since you've been in the gun industry your entire life, basically.
Exactly.
You've seen every trend. You've seen writers being important at a given point. You've seen magazines being important. And now we're in this age of influencers and content creators. How does that affect your business? What do you think of all that?
Business wise, anybody who can bring, eyes to the website is valuable for me.
Sure.
But I find something interesting. I had and this is nobody I've taken a class from recently. I had a instructor talking bad about Lucas over at T-Rex. Okay. Oh, he's this, and this. And I said, hey, buddy, I promise you, Lucas has done more for positive influence in this industry, getting people to actually train. Because we went from, the guys who shot 2 weekends a year to guys who really want to go out there and train. I was like, he's making your business as a trainer. And for me, so I have a son who's 15, and he's shot. He's grown up his whole life shooting, but he's not into it like me. But when he watches YouTube and sees Lucas running around his property, shooting guns fast and all that stuff, it makes him want to shoot. So to me, Lucas has done more to push the industry forward than anybody in a long time. So I love this new, they're influencers or they're YouTube guys. I love it. I think it's great for the industry. YouTube is something that I think has been awesome for the industry. And my one big regret as a company is we didn't jump into YouTube really heavy 5 years ago when I wanted to. I remember thinking like we needed to hire a full-time YouTube guy, and that was like, that's crazy. That's crazy. I wish we'd done it. I knew I should have, but we didn't. And we
But the
still,
good thing is
have
you're
a
doing it
YouTube
now.
channel.
I mean, you're doing it
Yeah,
now. So,
yeah. But
what's
that's the content I crave. I like YouTube.
Sure. So it's youtube.com/aim surplus. Is that the actual?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make sure we get a link in the description and whatnot. So you've seen this age of thing. First of all, I want to touch on Lucas. I do not agree with Lucas's position outside of guns. Like he has said some things that makes me never want to be in a room with him. The utterly disrespectful to certain people, and I at the same time agree that he can shoot the lights out. Like that dude can shoot, he can move, and they have created a team that makes that look super cool.
Yep.
And I've said similar things about other content creators. The ability to reach people by feeling sort of identified. And I was talking to Kevin Dixie about this concept of feeling like you have permission based on feeling represented through an influencer or content creator or whatever. It sort of gives permission to do this thing that a lot of kids, the 15-year-olds, I mean, heck, even people, I'm 39, people my age played a lot of video games, and to see people moving and shooting like in a video game, the people that are not into guns like we are, they see that as like a permission slip to go try it, right? And that I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, Grand Thumb has done so much to push, making it cool to be in the industry. And I think that's great because, I'm a guy who I have a 15-minute, my attention span is not great to watch a whole show of anything, but that's why I love YouTube, because I can get a 5-minute or a 15-minute version of something and on to the next one. If it's, we talked a lot about van life, and I love van life videos, even though I don't have any, but, I like to watch van life. And, last night I was watching a video on how to rewire light switches. But that's what YouTube is great for. I get short segments. And so, I can put a Grand Thumb video in front of my son, and it's cool. He wants to watch that. That's entertainment versus if I give him, some review on another station where they're, taking apart a Remington 700, he's not into that. Sure. So I think these guys are what's pushing us forward. We need younger gun buyers. Not 15. He's not old enough yet, but you know what I'm saying.
So are you the kind of guy that, like myself, you have the phone in your hand watching a YouTube video, like a tutorial, and you're like, all right, shut up, get to it, just clicking forward.
Yeah.
That is precisely why TGC has always been very fast, because I can't sit through content. I can't do it.
60 seconds. I love your stuff, and that's where we started talking is, your stuff has that shorter content that can keep my attention. And then I'm on to the next thing, because my viewing on YouTube is, hey, I'm watching van life. I'm watching gun content. Now I'm watching boats. I'm watching houses. I'm watching cars. Yeah.
I watched a guy, I can't remember the name of the channel, and forgive me, somebody will know this channel, but there was a guy that built a boat in his yard. And I'm not talking, it was like a research vessel. It wasn't like a wood boat, like a dinghy or something. This was like a full research vessel. And I had found it through an aluminum casting video, because I just get lost on these sort of trends of people making stuff that I just find quote unquote satisfying. That has been the all-encompassing term, but I enjoy watching stuff come to be. And this guy was casting porthole covers rather, for this boat. And then I got into it, and he's literally fabricating a full-on research vessel in his yard away from the ocean. I think it was in like Illinois or something, like not in a place where you would expect it.
Yep.
If anybody,
I watch a lot of yacht videos, and I live in Ohio, but yacht videos are great. Naughty Styles is one of my favorite YouTube channels, and it's all about touring yachts. I live in Ohio. I'll never own a yacht in my life, but I want to see, all about these yachts. And my son makes fun of me. He's always like, you watch all these camping videos and van life, negative 30-degree camping. He's like, when's the last time you went camping? I'm like, hey, buddy, it's not about that. I'm living somebody else's life right here through YouTube. Yeah. Don't tell me what to watch.
Don't tell me my business, devil woman. So
Exactly.
you watch van life as well. That is something that has
Mhm.
become a big part of my life. Who are you watching? Like, are you just finding random stuff? Like, or
Do you
they're
know Ryan Toomey? Ryan Toomey, I think's his
I
name.
don't. I don't.
It's a good one. And there was Nikki Damenthal.
I've seen her stuff. I
She has the dog,
try
and I
not
like the dog.
to dig too much into content that, like, she strikes me as somebody that's trying really hard
Yeah,
on what I've
definitely.
seen, and I don't enjoy. I would
Yeah.
rather see like the raw side of it. I don't know. Maybe that will change over time, but that's kind of the stuff that I'm enjoying now. So why do you watch those channels?
I just find it interesting. I always want to be able to do things that I can't do. Like, okay, if you get stuck in a snowstorm, how do you survive? That kind of stuff.
Sure.
You know, it may never happen to me, but I like to watch, how to grow food, even though I, live in a HOA neighborhood and have no way to attempt that. But
That
it's fun to
reminds me of a
watch.
meme. Oh, that reminds me of the I think it's F the HOA, grow corn in your front yard meme.
Yep. I watch a lot of barbecue stuff. It's just I just have a short attention span, so I'm always looking for something new to watch.
There's a channel that does a lot of really interesting steak aging called Guga Foods, Guga. And that dude, I think he said he aged a steak. It was like Wagyu in butter for like 3 years or some
Wow.
nonsense concept. And it's just one of those things you're like, I'll watch that. I'll
Sucks
watch
you
that.
in, and then you're watching weird stuff. And then after that, the algorithm is going to keep giving you more and more of that.
I
Yeah.
got into watching this guy from England building out fish tanks. I did not care. Like, I got into it, and I'm not into doing it myself, but it was really entertaining to watch. And now I'll sit down and be like, "Oh, you did that different last time. You're full of crap."
Yeah. Yep, I get that.
So
But that's the beauty of YouTube, man.
yes, it is. Why not start your own just random YouTube, like Brian's channel? Do you not have the
So
time?
actually, I did a long time ago. It's called The Life of Brian, and it's probably got 8 videos on it. That's it. I used to ride razors, Polaris razors, and so
I
I'd put
thought you
a
meant like Razor
GoPro.
scooters.
No, I wish, but no. I put a GoPro on the outside, and we did all this off roading. And I'm going to be honest with you, I can't even watch it myself on YouTube because it's so boring. When you do it, it's like, oh, this hill was huge. When you watch it on YouTube, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so lame. So I did that. I had some shooting stuff, but I just don't really. I don't know. It's just I don't have the time. I want to watch. I don't want to make them. And besides that, I do appear in some of our AIM surplus videos. We put some of that stuff out there, and I'll be in those. And that's about as much as I. And I don't have time to edit. Editing is so. To me, I should maybe watch a YouTube video on editing because that's the scariest part for me. I don't know how to do it, and don't want to.
It's there's an art form in editing, and I've been doing some deep diving into how to edit, not like the actual the technical side of it, of like, here, cut here, this. It's more about how to create content that is almost manipulative in certain ways. Like, like, say something here, cut to this, and constantly be moving and doing it's complicated. It's
Yeah,
complicated.
yeah. You know what I hate? Can I give my YouTube gripe?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this is
please.
about gun channels. I
Oh,
hate
I
how
can't wait
every
for this.
good, and it's not your channel, but they've got to take a screenshot, and you're like, and you're holding a gun. It's the dumbest screenshots. And I'm thinking of a channel. I'm not going to say their name, but it's like, oh my gosh, I would never want to watch a channel because every screenshot for the it's just awful. They're holding guns like, oh man, it drives me crazy. I hate that
I
stuff.
fully appreciate that. First of all, I do that in my own thumbnails, so I'm gonna take ownership of the. Some folks call it the soy face. I do it
Uh-huh.
because it works.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of clickbait stuff out there too, where I see
It has
titles
to
like,
be.
I hate this gun, and then you watch it, and it's all positives and some little weird thing that they didn't like about it. And
It's
yeah, I
very,
get the
yeah.
clickbait stuff. I see that,
Well,
but it's the
some,
thumbnails that drive you crazy.
there's some stuff that's sort of legit in that approach, but a lot of it is just trying to punch through the algorithm to get somebody to click on it. Just please click on the video, because the day of the YouTube subscription is gone. For any of our content creators out there listening, subscribers don't really matter as much as they used to, because the way YouTube has progressed, and other platforms are the same way. You don't necessarily watch content from people you subscribe to. I mean, I'm subscribed on TGC to probably 1,000 channels, and I never actually go into the subscriptions feed anymore. That should tell you.
Yeah, I don't either. You're right. It's the home screen just
Right.
shows me what they think I want.
YouTube, I don't know what year it was. I think it was probably like 2017. Stopped having you land on your subscription page when you went to the website. It used to be that way. And then it switched to the home page and the home feed and the browse and all that sort of stuff. And that was when the change started happening. And now it's even more concreted in there. So away from YouTube, gun industry in general, what's next? What do you see on the horizon?
Well, I think this year we're going to see a lot of 2011 competitors. Can't call it 2011, but that's what we're going to see a lot of. You saw the Platypus, and there was 3 or 4 others I saw at the NRA show where people are doing the double stack 2011. I had Steve Fisher come by my office a couple of days ago, and we were talking about what's next. And I pulled a 2011 out of my bag, and I'm like, everybody trying to copy this. And he was like, man, you're right. Everybody's trying to make their own 2011 bolt guns. I mean, I see why, like, hey, a company like Aero Precision that, their home state's against them. And they're like, hey, let's come out with a bolt gun or a lever gun. I see the industry doing a lot of that. I think everybody's jumping into the pistol optics. C&H just released some. Griffin Armaments releasing some. I know Vortex and Trijicon are getting ready to release new stuff. That's what everybody's jumping into. And I do think I'm a huge red dot fan on pistols. And so I do think that's the way that's the future. Because if you've ever put some time and effort into shooting a red dot pistol, you won't go back. Nobody ever goes back. People they don't want to jump in the pool, but once they get in that water, they ain't going back.
I was against optics on pistols for a while. I was like, I don't need that. I was very fuddy about it. And then we had a whole bunch come in that were optic cut for reviews. I'm like, I guess we should put an optic on this. And then I learned how to shoot with it. And now I suck with iron sights.
Yep, me too.
I can do it, but I'm not great.
I got bifocals. Bifocals and shooting just suck. And so when my eyes started to go bad, I started getting to the red dot game. And then I realized that the advantage outside, people are talking about 5 yards or slower. They're not. It's just you make it live up to something that doesn't happen with iron sights. With iron sights at 3 yards, you're not getting a sight picture. You're pulling that gun out and shooting it. So if you pull out a red dot gun and you're trying to see the red dot, well, it's an unfair standard. But you get out to 25 yards, big difference. Go shoot a handgun at 100 yards, huge difference. So yeah, I think red dot's going to take over.
It's like a tiny, tiny little dot in a lot of cases versus a chunky, pistol sight. They're not made for that type of precision.
Yep.
I think it's fascinating to see the push, and I've certainly pushed it myself on TGC News. When a gun comes out without an optic cut, I poo-poo that hardcore. Like, no. It is 2023. Every single gun should have an optic cut, whether it's intended to be used that way or not. They should all just have it, because it's just better. It's just better.
Yeah, I had H&K in here yesterday. They came by to visit, and they were talking about, do you know Nathan over at HK?
I knew Nathan back when he worked at Faxon. That's when I met him.
So yeah, I've known him for a long time also. And so he came in and he was talking about how up until late fall last year, it was still 60-40 iron sight guns over red dot, optic cut guns. And he's like, man, all of a sudden this year, it's now 80-20. So I think everybody in the industry knows that's where it's going. So you got to adapt and be ready for it,
It's interesting watching all of the optic companies try and figure out how to make a good one as well. because I can't tell you how many times, we put an optic on a pistol and it just doesn't make sense. Like the whole of it doesn't make sense. It's either the frame's too thick, it doesn't fit, this particular optic. It requires some weird thread, or, somebody like SIG came out with their optic cut standard that has no indexing points on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of flat. And I think that is the worst thing that they could have done, because you can mount an optic crooked and that's kind of a mess in its own way. And now I just got a Bushnell that it's a small, I think it's part of their RDX or RXD line. I'm not 100% on that, but it's like half the height of like an RMR. And I was like, there's no chance this is good. And for some reason, it just works. You get a dot, you project it, you look down range, and biggity bam, you can shoot it. And I am very excited to start. We're going to see more frameless designs, just like a piece of glass held on the bottom, and sort of more racy stuff. Is there anything that you're excited about when it comes to optic cuts and 2011s, like anything in particular?
So, well, and by the way, when you're talking about the indexing points, so one of my USPSA guns, which is a M&P that I've had, I mean, it's a Gen 1, so it's an old gun. When I had it cut for optic for the original RMR, they didn't put the indexing points or the recoil bosses in it. And everybody's like, oh, that's going to break. So I used an RMR on it for years and then changed to an SRO. And I mean, I can't tell you the date that RMR came out, but since then it's been on the same gun and it's been perfect, never had a problem. And I use it for USPSA. So, I mean, it's had a hard life. And so people that were saying, oh, they can't take the gravity and they can't take the zero shock and all, they will. And I don't know anybody in the industry who won't honor a red dot warranty anyway. I dropped an SRO on concrete and broke it. Okay, I sent it to Trigicon. 2 weeks later, I got a replacement. So that's a good thing, is people worry too much about, the durability. Hey, if you break one, send it back. They'll fix it. You'll be out of a gun for a couple weeks, but hopefully you got more than one gun. But you were talking about what I'm wanting to see. So everybody's going to the closed emitter optics and all that. So
yeah,
to me, that's never been a problem, because now, I'm 6 years into shooting dots and I've never had, a dot problem that I needed a closed emitter. I do own a couple 509Ts, but it's not a huge deal for me. But I want to see footprints all become, where the industry says, hey, this is the footprint. This is what we're doing.
Oh man, I totally agree. Oh my gosh.
I get people all the time that ask for like, hey, do you have aim slides that are cut for the Vortex Venom? And I'm like, who sells those optics anymore? You know what I'm saying? Or the Vortex Razor. And I'm like, man, listen, we just stuck with the RMR footprint.
You have a block slide for my Leupold Mark 5 HD. I would like to put my
and it's like, hey, if you want to put an Acro or a 509T on it, they got adapter plates. Put the adapter plate on there and make it work. But so I'm hoping we all stick to the RMR footprint. And supposedly the new Trigicon is going to stick to the footprint. The Hollow Sun competition, which everybody's waiting for, and I'm super excited. Can't wait to get one of those. That's going to be the RMR footprint. So I think we need to kind of stick to that. SIG trying to push the Delta Point footprints. Like, come on, guys, jump on this with everybody else.
I would love, I think it's a lot of ego that's holding us back from getting that standardized setup, because I fully 110% agree. I think the RMR cut is superior. I think there are some other good ones, but first of all, I will say that anything that does not have the recoil bosses, some sort of indexing point, that's trash. I can't avoid it because of what we do. We're trying different guns all the time. It's really frustrating when, you're playing with the left, right and trying to get the optic to sit straight on there, and you have almost nothing to reference it on. So for me, that's super annoying. But more importantly, let's stop trying to invent new footprints, because in large scale, it doesn't effing matter. The footprint doesn't matter. It just, as long as it doesn't come off the gun, it doesn't matter. And then we can start getting into better optics and more interesting optics. we have, like you mentioned, the SRO and the Delta Point, and they have like sort of larger screens and thinner frames, and then we're getting into newer technology where we could start seeing either like we have night vision compatibility now, but maybe we start seeing some thermal type stuff on a pistol slide. That's crazy. It's totally possible.
Yep.
I mean, do you remember back, I think it was the Torrey Pines, I want to say P15. I don't know what it was. It was this very tiny, like red
screen on it.
Yeah. Like a little EOTech-sized thermal years ago. I would love to see more of that stuff pushing towards what Holosun brought out at SHOT, and giving more capability rather than arguing about the semantics of whose cut is on the gun. What do you think of that?
Yeah, and I mean that's the cool thing. I'm telling you guys, Holosun has been such a breath of fresh air to the industry, because they're not saying, hey, maybe we could do this in the future. They're just trying it. They're going for it. Warranty is right there. Price point is right there. Super good guys. I think those guys are pushing faster than the typical, the Leopolds and the Trigicons and the aim points. Holosun is more aggressive, and they're willing to try stuff, and they've been so good for the optics industry.
Yeah, I mean, look at Trigicon. The most recent optic that I remember for a slide is the RMSCC, which arguably was a commercial flop. I have one. It's not a bad optic. It's not a bad optic, but it's a unique cut. Nobody's gun is cut for it. And I like you said, I think the RMR is great. And for small stuff, the RMSC has arguably become the standard, which okay, that's fine.
You have to for the small guns.
Yeah. I think if you look at, Trigicon, Aimpoint, Loophole, by comparison, they are moving like molasses in January to Holosun. And now I've got a Swamp Fox shirt on. They're even beginning to push. And then we've got other brands that are working there. Bushnell is coming out with new stuff. Burris has some newer stuff. And I would love to see, I don't know what Trigicon has on deck, but for a slide, if it's like an RMR Gen, I don't know, 3 or whatever they're up to now, holy crap. Can we get yes, please. Let's go. Let's get some more innovation going. How cool would it be to see Aimpoint do something besides a closed emitter system? That would be great.
It's interesting. Every time I post up my Chambers Custom 2011, everybody's like, you have a Holosun on there? You have a Chinese optic? I'm like, yeah, it's the 508T. Name me a better one. It's way better than RMR. And you can't fit an SRO on that cut. So there's not a better optic. I'm telling you, the 508T from Holosun, those things are bulletproof. They're titanium. I can't tell you when I changed a battery in one. Those things are awesome.
Yeah, the only time I've ever changed a Holosun battery is when I left it on forever, and it's not one of the shake awake models. Because I've had them for years and years now, so I've got a breadth of their different variations, and I agree. I think those small closed emitter ones are great. I don't know that there's a specific one. I think, I want to hear your opinion on this. I think the best thing that has happened in pistol optics is the Vulcan reticle out of Primary Arms. What do you think of that? Have you seen that? Have you played with it?
I've played with it. And for example, I had an employee say, hey, I'm waiting on one of those, when we're going to get into more in. And I said, hey, just train enough that you can use your regular reticle. Because the Holosun, it's kind of interesting because it's, the chevron with the circle. I'm not a chevron fan personally. I also don't like the circle dots in a handgun optic. I don't like the circle optic. I'm just a dot. Just give me a dot. I went to that Sage Dynamics class this week, and he opened it up with, okay, when you can't find your dot, do this. Well, I practice my gun. I find my dot every time, so I don't need the aid of the circle. So as I told this guy, yes, if you want to start off with that so that you're getting that chevron every time, I get it. But let's get you to a dot sooner than later, because the dot is really, we're fine-tuning things, getting a more consistent sight picture. If you're picking up the gun the same way every time, you're going to see a dot and not have a problem.
So my argument, my sort of counter to that is that most people, I would say, of the gun owning public, I would say like 10% at most shoot regularly. And
I'd say that's a way higher number than, I don't think it's 10%. Let's go to 1.
Okay, so 1% shoot regularly. If you have, we're talking about putting red dot optics on every gun, every pistol out there, right?
Yeah.
If that's the case and you have the need for it and you don't shoot all the time, a tool that could get you to that, I agree, the chevron is not ideal. The thing that could get you centered up on that is that Vulcan circle. And for those that are unfamiliar, the idea is that the emitter projects a circle that is larger than what you see on the screen, so that as you move the gun around, you only see continuous edges of a circle on the outer edge. And that is a good way to get your brain to center that optic quickly. So in my opinion, the reason I say it's the best thing to happen is because it is that the bridge over the gap of not knowing how to use an optic and not having the opportunity or desire to train to run that. So it's sort of that, like, this is bringing people closer to being proficient faster. Does that make sense?
Totally do. But let me give you the best thing about a red dot.
Tell me.
The greatest diagnostic tool for dry fire you've ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
So I can sit in my basement for absolutely free, not spending a penny. And I can put my shot timer on the counter, hit it for like a 1.5 random, and I can pull my dot, click, and I see what the dot does. Because let's say you're shooting a Glock and you got that dot right on your tiny little light switch you're aiming at. And that reticle, when you pull the trigger, goes, guess where that shot went? So, the greatest thing about the dot is the bullet goes where you're looking. Worst thing about the dot is the bullet goes where you're looking. And if you see that dot, going somewhere, that you just shanked that shot. And so, I don't always get to go shooting when I want to, but I can sit in my basement and dry fire 1,000 rounds of dry fire for free. And I've gotten to the point where in my office, I work at a gun store, so not everybody can do this. But I'll sit there with an M&P and a dot, and out my window, I've got a telephone pole that's probably 50 yards away, and I put that dot on the telephone pole and click, racket, click, racket, click. And I know that if my dot stays on that top of that telephone pole when I pull the trigger, I wouldn't have shanked that shot. But if my dot goes boop, I shank the shot. And so I'll sit there and dry fire that while I'm on the phone call or whatever all day long. It's the greatest diagnostic tool for shooting ever.
I have not made an attempt to correct this, but I have a flinch with just about everything out there. And I totally 100% agree. 100% agree. It's a lot of people years ago, probably 10 years ago, used to say a laser was your diagnostic tool. I used to sell, when I started selling guns in like 2012, 2013, that was something I used, that technique to sell Kimbers and things that came with that Crimson Trace laser on it. That was a selling point that I gave people. And now the dot has replaced that.
Yeah. It's just, so I help teach some classes at our local range, and IAI for our local guy. And I tell people that all the time with the red dot. It is such a good diagnostic tool. Just, you don't have to have a loaded gun. Sit there, see what you do with the trigger, become intimate with the trigger. And then a lot of those Glock shank shots that are low left, I get calls all the time. Hey, I bought some sights from you for the Glock and my gun's shooting low left. Oh, really? Are you right-handed? Yeah, I wonder why. So it's just such a good tool for that. And so if your problem is with trigger control, you can fix that pretty easy. Also it works on your grip, because you have to have a good grip if you're going to do that drill with the dot. And then you bring that into the draw, and you can keep practicing that. And sometimes those winter days when it's like -4 and we got 3 foot of snow outside, I get more out of training in my basement than I would going out to the range, because the only thing actually going to the range is going to give me is recoil, and my recoil control is pretty good. So I'm working more on my draw, because that's the weakness of my game. And a lot of people don't know their weakness as a shooter. I do know my weakness is my draw. My hands don't move as fast at 47 as they did when I was 20. And so that's what I need to work on. The recoil control, I've got that down. I've got my trigger control down. So, we just got to pick apart what we can do better as a shooter and work on those things. And, having the dot and doing some dry fire helps me the most.
I 100% agree. I do not ever take the time to dry fire. I will openly admit that, because I'm a bad gun enthusiast. We by default shoot so many different guns. I don't know which one to practice with. Yep. I carry one. Yeah, I carry a BP9, and I've even considered swapping that out for. I picked up. I believe this was from Aim Surplus. If I'm not, I believe this was the TAC Ops. Didn't I get that from you?
Yeah.
I was like, wait,
SIG.
The SIG 365 TAC Ops, full size magwell, no ports on the slide. Aim Surplus they were the only ones that had it in stock, by the way. I will point that out. I went looking to see who's got good prices, and turns out Aim Surplus is the bee's knees. And that's not me trying to we're going to plug this business. No, that's actually what happened. So I'm actually considering swapping to that just because it's that good. And I should probably dry fire with it. What do you think? Should I?
Yeah, and especially because the SIG triggers. I was talking to Aaron Cowan about this weekend at a class. The SIG triggers really will break in a lot. They're kind of mushy. They've got a pudding wall. If you dry fire them, they do crisp up. But you also need, with a 365 especially, and I'd say it's the same thing with the Glock. You just got to grip the crap out of that gun and work through that trigger all the way to the rear, and that's the way you build that skill. And so usually a really good Glock shooter has a really good grip. A really good SIG shooter has a really good grip because you don't get the crutch of a trigger like an Apex M&P or a 2011. Sure. They'll actually hurt your grip a little bit, I think, and your trigger control. But so, yeah, I definitely think that's a gun you need to practice with.
Yeah, I need to practice with all of them. Let's be fair.
Yeah, we all do.
All of them. So,
yeah.
What is next on the horizon for AIM? What do you need to plug? What should people be aware of with your business?
If you're local, if you're in the Ohio area, the Cincinnati, Dayton area, listen, there's not a better gun shop in the country than what we have here. I'll throw that right out there. My guys, my crew is the best. The guys have work in the showroom. If you haven't met Kenji, he's the greatest dude you've ever met. Hunter, those guys are so awesome. If you go to our showroom, we have all the cool guns on display. We've got all the accessories. We have a Touch Me wall. You've seen the Touch Me wall.
I have seen the Touch Me wall.
Yeah. So, you go to most gun shops and you're like, hey, I'd like to see an Aimpoint Pro. And the guy brings you an Aimpoint Pro in the box and you're not allowed to open it. I don't want to do that at a gun shop. So my Aimpoint Pro is on the wall. Play with it, touch it. All of it, we have 30 ARs on the wall, all with different triggers, different stocks, different charging handles, different safeties, different optics. Go play with them, because you may come in saying, hey, I want an EOTech, and you might leave with an Aimpoint. Or you may come in and for a Griffin armament safety, and you may leave with a Radiant. I want you to try them all. They're there. All the firing pins have been cut. We want you to dry fire these guns. We want you to touch them. And I don't know of any other gun shop that has that. The other thing we have that most people don't is behind the big concrete wall. There's $6 million worth of inventory sitting there that you can order, and we'll bring it out to you. So, you can say, hey, I want some small product that's not in our showroom. Guess what? There's a big warehouse behind it where you can get that product. So that's something we offer that most gun shops don't. So if you're in the area, we have that. If you're online, hey, our website's open 24/7. We try to do a YouTube video, and you saw, I'm in our YouTube room right now. We try to have an unboxing video on all the new stuff. So if you want to see what is in the box with that new Colt 6920, we're going to pop one here and do an unboxing video. Here's the gun. Here's what it comes with. Here's the manual. It comes with this mag, or, we try to do some breakdowns like that. So we just try to be what I would want as a consumer, because that's what I am. I'm a gun guy. I'm not a CEO who drives around a Lambo. I'm a gun guy. And so what I want out of a YouTube channel is what we try to do out of a YouTube channel. What I want out of a shopping experience is what we try to do. What I want out of a local store is what I tried to build. So I'm trying to cater to the gun guy from a gun guy, not some corporation who, it's just not the same. I'm trying to do things different.
And that's what I appreciate about you. So, guys, we unfortunately are out of time. Be sure to check out our sponsors, Blackout Coffee. The link is blackoutcoffee.com/TGC. Buy the Tenacity blend. You're going to love it. And try the teas and cocos, because legitimately they support the Second Amendment. They support freedom. And that's the kind of people we want in our neighborhood. So the code is TGC, and that code also works over at vertex.com. Get yourself a backpack, a gun bag, maybe an organizational VTAC stackable storage bag for your vehicle. I use that in the van. I absolutely love them. And of course, Bryan, thank you for your time. I know you're very busy, so thank you for being here and chit-chatting with us a little bit. It's good to I feel like we actually get a chance to hang out this way. It's weird that way, but yeah, it's cool, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys, that is it. Thanks as always for watching. Be sure to get subscribed, download the latest podcast. I don't know, all the normal nonsense you're used to hearing. Thanks as always for watching. We'll see you soon.